it's really good to have that visual aspect, but also a written aspect as well, because there are some things that really need to be fleshed out in like a written format. But also, like we were discussing earlier, is that, you kind of need to have that process in there and some visual aspect of it, whether it be photos or a video, kind of shows that it's like uncensored.
My favorite part about Sing's book is that you can follow like your own trajectory through the book. Like you can follow your own thought path with hers, because to be honest, most times when you're just trying to interact with content, it's not going to be super linear. Like it's not going to be perfect, and you're not going to get to every like wonderful rounded thought like at the end of everything. Like it's nice to be able to interact and engage and like stop and pause and think, oh, like, am I really getting this? Or are there connections that I can think about, or memories that this conjures up? And then be able to relate to the subjects and find yourself like in the ethnography, which might not always happen, but be able to like position yourself, but also like go in and out, I think is something that's really helpful.
Great about anthropology is that, I think within any fieldwork and any subfield, even archaeology as well, is that, you go out into the field and you're taking whatever path, the material or the culture or whatever takes you, wherever that takes you. You're not, you don't just have this plan and you stick to it by the book,
Yeah, and I know you talk about archaeology, so I was kind of thinking about history, how you would kind of like applying that to anthropology, but also kind of moving away from that a little bit, more into just history as a discipline. Kind of when I think about following a trajectory in terms of kind of like what we were thinking about with this book, like sensing and noticing, kind of trying to feel your way through things. With history, I feel like it would kind of be more of like going back and forth. Well, I mean, of course, we can't get away from it. And that's, I think, something that a lot of people still group together with anthropology, like, going out and finding like an exotic other, which I think that contemporary anthropology is kind of moving away from. Even using the word like exotic would be like not really something that's super great. But of course, like reconciliation isn't just saying like, no, it didn't happen, but like accepting, like take that and like change it. Like in archaeology, like how do you, even if you aren't working with like people or things that can like talk to you, like how do you operate under that like history?
As far as archaeology goes, I don't know. Aside from being aware of it, because I've worked in settings where it did feel incredibly colonial in certain ways. There's just this like white savior complex that you just can't really get away from if you are working in those like foreign places.
I think it's very difficult to get away from that past. Colonialism and capitalism with it have pretty much touched and influenced everywhere in the world. If a country wasn't colonized, it at least was doing some colonization for the most part, it seems like, and as anthropologists, we have to remember that. And like you're saying, it's hard to get away from that, especially in areas that anthropology was definitely used to exploit the people. In Africa especially, you still to this day, people have bad memories and a bad taste in their mouth when they think about anthropology.
Consider maybe another one of the concepts in the book, like who is the protagonist, like in your research, like your ethnography, like just like if you always like view yourself as this, like, well, maybe we should educate them on like what we're doing, like maybe also like allowing yourself to be educated. And I think that obviously, we can't get away from like our roots, like our history, because that's always going to be there. But maybe like considering like when you do your research and your work, like rather than just like extracting data, really like working with the people, like understanding it like within its own like contemporary context, but also like historical context, like how this affects the people, because obviously like history and understanding that is like a huge part of understanding like identity. and whether it's like a material, like object, or like a theory, or like kind of like the way people like move around like their spaces. I think that's really important, and so kind of how you're talking, like I don't know how to get away from it. Like we are literally like extracting things from the ground. Like how do we not just extract data from these people? Like you talked about like education. I think kind of like a dual like collaboration,
Right.
and like understanding each other. And even if you don't come to an agreement, like I think that's so important.
Right. I would say collaboration is a good way to look at it, is to look more at your subjects as someone that you're working with rather than someone you're working on. You know,
Right.
they're not just people to be studied, and you know, we're not in a colonial sense. You know, they're not. That knowledge that is theirs, we're taking from them and extracting and bringing back here. So in
And
a way,
almost
that's
fetishizing it.
in a way that's capitalism. That's intellectual capitalism, and so I think
More reciprocal.
it's more. Yeah, it's important for them to understand why you're there and what you're doing, as opposed to you just showing up and
Right.
doing your research.
What they can gain from it.
Right. I think the collaboration aspect is something that definitely needs to be furthered.